a dying CIA agent, gets 3 days to complete his final mission and save his family. Will he succeed or lose everything? To find out what happened next, watch the full video. The movie starts at the CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia. Agent Vivi DeLay is having a meeting with the CIA director and another guy to talk about their target, Wolfgang Braun, who is also known as the Wolf. This guy is trying to sell weapons to terrorists with his partner, the albino. The men tell Vivi that it's her job to stop both of them. She then asks about the agent who is already working on the case, and they tell her his name is Ethan Renner. We meet Ethan at a hotel in Paris, where he and fellow agent Yasmin are on a mission to capture the albino, who is set to make a deal with Serbian buyers. Ethan has already eliminated the buyers and cleverly swaps briefcases with the albino, exchanging secret codes. Just as he's about to deliver the codes to other agents waiting in a van, he receives a reminder on his phone that it's his daughter, Zoe's birthday. In a rush, he dashes to a payphone, using his watch to get change from a nearby vendor, but when he calls Zoe, he only reaches her voicemail. Meanwhile, Yasmin's cover is blown when the albino recognizes her, leading to a horrifying moment where he drags her into an elevator, which ultimately decapitates her. Chaos erupts as his men open fire on the agents in the van, igniting a fierce gunfight that spills from the hotel lobby to the street outside. Ethan pursues the albino, taking out his henchman, but he starts to feel weak and disoriented. Just as he catches up to the albino, he collapses but manages to shoot him in the foot. As the albino limps away, Ethan succumbs to his exhaustion and loses consciousness. Ethan wakes up in the hospital, where a doctor delivers the grim news. He has cancer that has spread to his lungs, leaving him with only 3 to 5 months to live. Heartbroken, Ethan returns to his apartment, only to discover that a refugee family now occupies his home. The father, Jules, greets him with kindness, explaining that they are refugees looking for a new home. Ethan goes to complain about the family living in his apartment, but he's informed that forcing them out could result in his arrest. Frustrated, he returns to confront Jules, pulling out his gun in an attempt to intimidate him. However, Ethan reconsiders and ultimately decides to let them stay until Jules' eldest daughter gives birth. Ethan then goes to town and calls his ex-wife, Tina, while she's out with friends. At first, she's unsure about meeting him, but when he insists that it's urgent, she agrees. They meet to finalize his will, and during their conversation, Ethan reveals that he is terminally ill and wishes to keep this information secret from their daughter, Zoe. He expresses a desire to spend time with her, but Tina makes it clear that she will only agree if he officially quits his job with them. Ethan readily agrees to her condition. The two of them head over to Zoe's school to see her. When she reunites with her dad, the moment feels a bit uncomfortable, and it's clear she's not too keen on chatting with him. Suddenly, a charming older boy approaches Zoe, and she introduces him as Hugh. He is courteous to Ethan during the introduction, but he's a bit unsure about the whole situation. After Hugh walks away, Ethan surprises Zoe with a purple bike, thinking it's still her favorite color. However, she decides to take the metro with her friends, leaving Ethan to ride the bike by himself. Ethan stops at a street stand and is approached by Vivi, who mentions Zoe's name and hands him his watch that he left at the hotel. Vivi persuades him to join her, suggesting he could work for her. Initially, he declines, but when she reveals that she possesses an experimental drug that could potentially save his life, he starts to think twice. Vivi then explains that the task involves tracking down a dangerous criminal known as the Wolf and eliminating him. She then brings Ethan to a hotel in search of a man who can lead them to the albino's account. She assures Ethan that there's just one person they need to find, but when he barges into the target's room, he discovers 5 men instead. In a chaotic turn of events, Ethan ends up taking out all of them, and when Vivi asks about the Wolf, they refuse to share any useful information. While in the elevator, Ethan makes it clear that he will only proceed with the mission if he receives $50,000 and a life insurance policy worth $1 million. Vivi agrees and gives him a dose of the drug to seal the deal. At the same time, we see the albino meeting up with a man. He gives this man a photo of Ethan to keep on him and leaves. Vivi drops Ethan at Zoe and Tina's apartment, and upon his arrival, he is startled by Zoe's scream. Fearing for her safety, he forcefully breaks the doorknob and rushes inside, only to discover that she's actually just upset about a terrible hairstyle. Meanwhile, Tina is furious with Ethan because he had promised to make dinner, but is now 3 hours late. With a business trip to London scheduled for the next day, she decides to hire a babysitter for Zoe, but Ethan argues that he should be the one to look after her instead. Later, Ethan begins to feel dizzy and faints. He calls Vivi, describing his hallucinations, and she advises him to drink vodka to help stabilize himself. Ethan follows her advice and takes a drink. The following day, Tina heads out, and Zoe arrives sporting a bright red wig. She notices Vivi trying to reach Ethan on his phone, and he informs her that it's her boss calling. In response, she sets "I Don't Care" by Icona Pop as the ringtone for when Vivi calls. Once more, Ethan encourages Zoe to bike to school, but she opts to walk instead and lets her wig fall off. Ethan meets Vivi once more, and she hands him the check she had promised, reminding him to stay calm and keep his heart rate down. She instructs him to find a car salesman named Maitat Yilmaz. When Ethan arrives at the dealership, he insults Maitat's staff and knocks them out before settling in Maitat's office to wait for his return. Once Maitat arrives, Ethan threatens his family and decides to take him back to his apartments. However, he soon receives a call from Zoe's school, asking him to meet with the principal. In a rush, he takes Maitat along and shoves him into the trunk of his car. Ethan and Zoe meet with the principal, where he finds out that Zoe got into a fight with another student. Ethan asks, "Open palm or clenched fist?" Hearing this, the principal tells them that violence is not an acceptable answer. As they leave, Zoe explains she hit the girl for teasing a student from Pakistan. Ethan isn't upset and agrees that it was a good way to deal with a bully. In the meantime, Maitat starts causing a commotion in the trunk, prompting Ethan to punch him and tell him to stay quiet. Zoe, irritated by Ethan's behavior and his persistent coughing, leaves him. Later, she calls to apologize and invites him to her favorite spot, a small theme park with her favorite ride, the flying chairs. Ethan initially plans to continue his search for the accountant, but decides to meet Zoe. They enjoy the ride together and share some hot chocolate afterward, but she eventually tells him she has to leave to study with her lab partner. Ethan then visits a store, where he is suddenly attacked by a man with a shotgun. The man fires at Ethan, but he emerges unharmed, likely protected by a vest. They engage in a brutal fight, and the man almost kills Ethan by stabbing him in the neck. However, the attacker is soon shot and dies. As Ethan recovers, he discovers that the man was holding a photo of himself. Ethan returns home and finds a message on Zoe's computer from a friend saying they'll meet at the tattoo gallery. Alarmed, he heads there and discovers Zoe's bag in a car. Breaking into the car, he finds a flyer for a place called Spider. He then visits Maitat's house and asks the twin daughters about Spider. They explain it's a soiree house. Ethan heads to Spider, a nightclub, and spots Zoe drinking with friends. Feeling dizzy, he takes a swig of vodka to steady himself. He follows Zoe near the bathroom and witnesses 3 men harassing her. Though a friend of the men tries to hold Ethan back, he taps into his protective instincts, taking down all the attackers and rescuing Zoe. The next morning, Zoe wakes up with no memory of the previous night, still in her dress from the nightclub. As she prepares to go to school, Ethan stops her, insisting she can't go dressed like that. He persuades her to ride the bike to school, but she angrily points out that he never taught her how to ride. Ethan spends the morning teaching her, drawing applause from bystanders. Later, Zoe tearfully asks why he's been absent for so long, expressing her fear that he might have another family. Ethan reassures her that's not the case. As they spend time together, Zoe confesses she hit the girl at school because she was flirting with Hugh. They eventually run into Hugh, who is there to take Zoe to school. Ethan later tracks down Guido, the accountant, as he's being transported through the streets. Ethan fires a tear gas grenade at the car, captures Guido, and then blows up the van. He takes Guido back to his apartment to swap the briefcase containing codes with one set to trigger explosives that the wolf and the albino possess. During this, Zoe calls Ethan to let him know she's planning to cook dinner for Hugh and wants to make a vegetarian dish. Ethan puts Guido on the phone to tell Zoe about a spaghetti sauce recipe that his mother used. That evening, Ethan returns home to find that Jules' daughter is in labor. She gives birth to a healthy baby girl and decides to name her after Ethan in gratitude for letting them stay in his home. Jules informs Ethan that they are ready to move out as promised, but Ethan insists they can stay as long as they need. Ethan goes back to Zoe's home and learns that Hugh has asked her to prom, but she's nervous because she doesn't know how to dance. Ethan steps in to help, guiding her through the steps. As they practice, Tina arrives home and watches them, touched by the heartfelt scene. They share a warm family dinner, enjoying the rare moment together. Later, Tina pulls Ethan aside and urges him to tell Zoe about his illness sooner rather than later. That night, the emotional connection between Ethan and Tina deepens, and they end up spending the night together. The next morning, Vivi calls and informs Ethan that the albino is staying at the Grand Hotel. Ethan heads there and spots the wolf, who gets into a car driven by Maitat. Ethan pursues them, ramming their car until he forces them off a footbridge. The wolf and the albino flee, but Ethan spares Maitat, allowing him to return to his family. Ethan chases the villains into the subway, where he starts experiencing a nosebleed and dizziness. As he tries to shoot the wolf, the albino drags him toward the train tracks. Despite the wolf's demands to kill Ethan, the albino waits for an approaching train. In a last burst of energy, Ethan manages to shove the albino onto the tracks just as the train passes, killing him. Ethan collapses, and the wolf escapes. He later wakes up at Vivi's place, where she reminds him of the wolf's escape but tells him that the experimental drug has shown positive results in his treatment. Ethan, Zoe, and Tina meet Hugh and his family for a formal gathering. To Ethan's shock, Hugh's father introduces him to his business partner, the Wolf. Recognizing each other, Ethan and the Wolf share an uneasy handshake. Hugh's parents lead everyone into a club, and Tina soon realizes Ethan is on an assignment. Feeling betrayed, she confronts him, accusing him of lying, but Ethan insists he's been honest with her. Suddenly, the Wolf's men open fire, and Ethan takes off in pursuit. After dispatching the goons, Ethan corners the Wolf in an elevator. In a final showdown, he shoots the wires, causing the elevator to plummet and crash to the bottom. Meanwhile, Hugh and Zoe slip into a private room, where they dance and share their first kiss. The Wolf crawls out of the wrecked elevator, severely injured, and Ethan finds him. As Ethan tries to finish the job, he becomes weak and drops his gun. The Wolf reaches for the weapon, but Vivi arrives just in time, kicking the gun back to Ethan. However, Ethan, thinking about Tina and Zoe, decides not to pull the trigger and drops the gun again. Frustrated, Vivi picks up the gun and shoots the Wolf herself, ending the mission. Sometime later, Ethan is living with Zoe in a house by the beach. He's setting up a Christmas tree, grateful to be alive for the holiday after believing he wouldn't make it. While decorating, he speaks to Tina over the phone, acknowledging that although there have been tough days, they're doing their best to mend their relationship. Tina soon arrives in person, and Ethan admits he hasn't always been there for her and Zoe like he should have been. Zoe appears, inviting her mom inside so Ethan can make them hot chocolate. As Tina and Zoe sit together, Zoe asks her mom if Ethan will stay this time. Meanwhile, Ethan steps into another room and discovers a box containing a large syringe and a note from Vivi wishing him a Merry Christmas. She's given him the drug so he can continue to spend time with his family. Outside, Vivi watches quietly from a distance, observing the reunited family in their home. In this way, movie ends here. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more interesting movie recaps.